This conference will now be recorded.
So here we are going to talk about object-oriented programming concepts, not from the theoretical angle, but we will talk about like why these concepts are important and where do they get applied in real-world software. Right? So this class main focus is do we get to understand the real-world applications of object-oriented programming concepts, right? So we all know there are four OOPS concepts that we talk about: inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. Right. So today we will understand them in detail from the application point of view. So I'll show you some pictures here. You need to guess who they are. Yeah. So whose picture is this? You can use chat window to type in your responses. Who do we see? Okay. Yeah. So people are responding that he's Amitabh Bachchan. Now, if I ask you next question, who is Amitabh Bachchan? Yeah. So most of people are saying Amitabh Bachchan is a film actor, Bollywood actor, yeah, Hindi actor. Yeah. So we are using two terms right now. And the two terms we are using is, we have seen Amitabh Bachchan. Okay, pardon me for spelling mistakes. So we have seen Amitabh Bachchan and we are saying he is an actor. So there are two things that we are using. One is a person and another thing is that he's actor. Now in object-oriented programming world, we will say like actor is actually a category or a class. Right? So we have seen a person who belongs to a category, who belongs to a class. So we are classifying the person in a category. That is where the classes come into picture. So if actor is a class, what is Amitabh Bachchan in object-oriented world? So actor is a class, then yeah, Amitabh Bachchan is object of that class, right? So that is how we are linking these two things, that Amitabh Bachchan is an object and actor is a class, a category. So class, the word class came from that classification, classifying. So we are classifying certain objects in various categories, and that is where the class concept comes, right? If I show you another picture, who is she? Yeah, she's Madhuri Dixit. Who is Madhuri Dixit? Yeah, she is also an actor. So ideally we are seeing two objects in front of us and both of them belong to the same class, belong to the same category, belong to the same classification. That is what we know about them, right? Can I say they also belong to one more class? So right now we have done one category of classification for them. Okay, yeah, Shivani is saying she is actress, not actor. Yes, certainly we can say that also. But I say like this is one category of classification we have done, that both of them are actor. Any other classification you can do for them, forget about their being actor, their being artist. Can you put them in any other category? Can you classify them in any other class? So Asna, you're saying Bollywood actors. So actor or Bollywood actor or artist, we are leaving that category. Imagine if I put, let me change my question. If I put in place of these two photos, if I put photos of two of your classmates, two people from your class, if their photos were here, what category would you put them in? And now I see a lot of responses. Yeah. So we are saying for these people, we are saying they are Indians. That is another classification. Then for your pictures, people are responding that, yeah, they would be students, right? Then we can also say they are human beings, right? So various categories are there. Now, which category we focus on, we worry about, it is totally depending on the software we are building. So decides which classes are our focus, right? So though we can put any object in various classes, various classifications, we still say like, depending on what software we are building, that will decide how we are classifying them. So if we are building library management system of your college, so let's talk about something called library management system. Now, library management system is a system, it is an online system where students can go search for books. They can get the books issued. Library management system can tell to the librarian how many books are there in the library, how many are issued, which student have which books issued, all that thing if we talk about library management system. So we define it a software system that makes it easy to search, issue, return the books for students.
ఇప్పుడు రెడ్ కలర్ పోయింది.
Prasanna, can you keep yourself muted?
లేదు.
Okay. Yeah, I have muted her. Okay. So we can books can be returned. So these are the functions it is giving for students. That makes it easy to return books, search books, or get the books issued for students, and easy for librarian to see which books are there in inventory, and for any admin, let's say in college, if principal wants to know like which student have not returned the book and time is over and they are not paying the fine for it, admin is a category I'm putting, like where can see various activity reports. Right? So if this is the definition of a software system that imagine we want to build, the first thing typically we do, we come up with a project idea or problem statement. That is where object-oriented programming actually starts getting involved. So let's say we are building a software system, which is this. The first thing that we begin with, we start with identifying classes. Can you identify what all classes for this software system we would need? From these problem statement that you are seeing in front of you, what classes? Okay, so I see responses from people. Yeah, so I'll note down all the classes that you are saying. So somebody is saying student is a class. Yes. Book is a class. Admin is a class. Faculty is a class. And librarian is a class. Okay, anything else that you have said and I missed? Student details, student admin, books. I guess, yeah. Okay, please. Somebody said, yeah, I think these are the classes that you guys are saying. So the way we identify classes is when you see the problem statement, the way to identify classes is focus on nouns. What are the nouns in our problem statement? They are most likely going to make classes. So first category that we see, it is a software system that makes it easy to search, issue, return the books. So we see a noun here. So we say, okay, book needs to be a class. For students, student needs to be a class. Then easy for librarian. Okay, librarian is a special role that needs to be a class because librarian should be able to do certain operation in the software system. Books are there in inventory. Inventory also seems to be a noun to me. We can put that for the time being. We are taking note of all the nouns that we see. Admin is a noun, we have already noted. Activity reports. Report is also a noun. So for now, we have blindly gone ahead and said, okay, let me take a note of every noun in the problem statement and see, hey, do we need anything from this as a class? So that is how we come up with the classes. And I'll park this thing here. We will come back to this case study again. So far we have identified, okay, we need these all classes to solve our problem, to make something, right? And we will proceed with our concepts. So far we understood like what we are talking about, what we have done. Any doubts, any questions from anyone? Okay, I guess no. So we will move forward. So we started with the concept. We said, hey, there are certain things which are classes, and now we are starting from the other angle. Here we started with the object first. There we have started with classes first, because when we build software, we start with identifying classes, and that is how we proceed. When we represent a class formally, there is a language this notation in which I have written actor, this notation has a name. Do you know what is the meaning or what is this notation about? I'm sure you would have studied that in your subjects. This way of representing a class, there is some formal name for it. Can somebody type in the chat window? What is this notation called? Yes. Yeah. There are two answers I see from Nilima and Vaishnavi. Nilima says this is called UML. What is full form of UML, Nilima? Yeah, what you're saying is right. This is UML. This is class diagram. Both the answers are correct. Attributes, class, object diagram, we will come to that later. Right now, this notation, this way of representing a class without code, pictorially, ability to represent a class like this notation is called class diagram. That is what we are seeing. And there is a language called UML. Can somebody tell me the full form of UML? Yeah, it is Unified Modeling Language. So this is a language to kind of pictorially represent object-oriented entities. It is not only for classes. This language is vast. Right now, what we are seeing in this language, one category or one area of diagram we are talking about in UML, and that is class diagram. So this is the way we represent class. Now let's pay attention to the various sections of this diagram. On top, there is a box where we have written actor. What is actor representing? What is it signifying? No, that is not attribute, Nilima. That is actor is actually the class name. So this notation says on top, whatever you are seeing, that is actually in UML notation, class diagram notation, here you put a class name. So that is what we have here, right? Then you have two more sections in this class diagram. This section represents attributes, absolutely. We can call it attributes, we can call it fields, we can call it properties. There are various names we can give to this, right? So we have talked about in class diagram, we will have on top, we will have class name. Then we have attributes, or we can call them fields, or we can call them properties. These actually describe our object. Third section that we have, this section, what is this section having? Yeah, so yeah, I see a lot of responses, all are correct. So basically we are saying they are operations, or they are called functions, or they are called methods. And we will use these words interchangeably, like functions, operations. Yeah, somebody said behaviors also. You can say that, yes, behavior. Yeah. So a class diagram will have these three parts, right? Apart from these three parts, class diagram is signifying one more thing. Let's pay attention to that part. You see, this particular column is also displaying some information. We'll come to this notation a little later. But what is this section? This plus, minus, hash, what are they representing? Can somebody tell what is the meaning of plus here? Why is this plus there? It carries meaning in the class diagram. Okay, if I have to give you a hint, this is related to excess modifiers. So what are the excess modifiers? So let me come back here. Apart from these three things, excess modifiers, yeah, they are basically public. In Java terminology, if we talk about, they are public, private, protected, and if we don't write anything, it is default. This is like absence of any of three attributes or any of three access modifiers is default. Now, can you guess out of public, private, protected, what does plus mean? What would plus signify about plus? Yeah, plus is public, absolutely. So plus stands for public. What should be for private? So minus is for private, and then leftover we know is for protected. So hash stands for protected, right? So this is now complete information about a class diagram. And now if we go and look at this class diagram, we can see some details. We can say, hey, actor is a class. This class has a property, has an attribute name. Each actor will have a name. And right now we are saying that name is public and the data type of the name is string. So the way we represent attributes is, so syntax for attributes, if I have to define, I'll say attribute syntax is, I'll say the field name colon data type. And that is what we are observing in that class diagram. So we see every attribute is following that notation. So it is name of the attribute colon data type, name data type, name data type. So attribute section, now we understand pretty well. Let's see the operation section, method section. Method syntax is, it says function name, then it will have here return type, and in between that there can be input parameters. So input param1 colon data type. This is the function syntax for writing functions. So if you see, we are talking about get movies is a function which is returning a list of movies. Get age is a function which is returning int. Set gender is a function which is returning a void. It takes one parameter G and data type of G is character. Get age on any given date. Given date is a variable input parameter and date is the data type, and this int is the return type of the function. Now out of all these functions, there is one special function we are seeing above which does not have a return type, and this function's name matches the class name. This kind of function in a class is a type of function. We give it some name. Can you tell what is that? Yep, that is called constructor. Right. So constructor is a special type of method. Constructor is a function with same name as class name, and its return type is void. So return type is not there, not void. I will say it doesn't have any return type. Right. So this much is something that we will keep in mind. Although this looks like a lot of theory, but we will next time we will represent a class like this. The moment we see this, we will say, hey, we understand all the parts of this diagram. We understand what plus means, what hash means, what gender means, what character is, why it is written this way. So this is some simple rules that we have followed to represent our class in this manner. Right. So I hope everyone is clear here so far. Any question from anyone? Yeah. Pravalika, you have any question, or you're just answering the previous question that is constructor? Okay, perfect. So we will move ahead. So this is how we represent a class. And once the class is represented, we see like how do we make object of a class? The way we represent that is we say class name object is equal to new class name round bracket. So ideally we are calling the constructor here. Once you have created object of a class, after that, in that object, we can access the data members, access properties, access fields using dot notation. So ab.name, we are putting Amitabh Bachchan in that. And then we are doing system.out.println, ab.getAge. What is the meaning of this line? What are we trying to do with this line? What is the meaning of ab.getAge? Yeah, we are accessing age. But what is getAge here? GetAge is a field or a function. Yeah, it is a function, it is a method, right? So we see that in this there is no field called age. The field is date of birth. This function based on today's date can calculate what is the age of the person. If we know the date of birth of a person, age can be calculated by subtracting the birth date from today's date. So if we calculate like how many years this person has survived or how old this person is, we can calculate that, right? So this diagram, this picture here is showing like once you have a class created, a written, you can ideally create object of that class. You can access data members or properties or fields, and you can call the functions on that. Right. So this is about our class representation, understanding what the classes are. Now, classes typically people say they encapsulate both the information, so methods and variables. Call it properties. Variables can be called properties, fields, anything. Methods can also be called methods, operations, function, anything. So we are seeing the class is something which binds methods and variables together. That is the purpose of a class. Now, class versus object, ideally we have already seen, but let's quickly go over it. Class represents a category of real world entity, and object represents a single uniquely identified entity. Right? So this definition is clear to everyone. How we connected Amitabh Bachchan and Madhuri Dixit to class versus object. So this is for the understanding of concept. But if we talk about in programming world, when we start coding, then we will not see class and object as this definition. We will see them as another definition. We will say, hey, class is a user-defined data type to model a category of real-world entity in software. So any real-world entity, if we want to model that, if we want to represent that in a software, we will represent that using a class. And class is nothing more than a data type for us. When we write programs in this way. We say, hey, int a. What is the meaning of this line? What is int? In this line, what is int? Int is a data type, certainly. What is a here? If int is a data type, what is a? A is a variable. Absolutely. So same way what we do, when we have a class actor, we will say, hey, actor is nothing but a data type. But this data type is something we have created. That is why it is called user-defined data type. And actor A, we say A is a variable. But in object-oriented world, people say actor is a class. Ideally, actor is a data type. And A is an object, but here it is a variable for us. So that is how we are linking. Class means data type, object means a variable of it. This is the correlation we have seen about class versus object. Now, we have done this exercise earlier in library management system that we have identified class already, but we did not identify what are the constructors, what are the methods or functions, what are the data members of each class, what the access modifiers are. These things also need to be identified from the problem statement that we are working on or the real world software that we are building. We start identifying these things. When we have identified multiple classes, we have represented them. That is where we go to the next step. Now I'll park this discussion over here and I'll jump onto a small application we will talk about, because ideally this session is not about learning just the theory of hooks. It is also about knowing how do we apply that in real world, right? So imagine if you want to build a small piece of software. I'll describe you a software because it should be fun. It should be interesting also, whatever we are building. So we want to build something like a mini paint application. So this should be a UI where simple thing we will do for now. Later on, we will make this application completely big. Is when we drag mouse from one location to another, and if we pick our mouse, it should draw a line, right? Then there should be a drop down here which should say line, rectangle, circle. All that should be from drop down. From drop down, whichever thing we select, that thing, if I select circle, then I drag my mouse, ideally it should draw a circle. So this is eventually where we want to head. Eventually out in this session, we want to learn how to build a small paint application and how do we say that object-oriented programming concepts get applied in building the paint application. So that will be one case study we will be taking in this session. Ideally, object-oriented programming we will cover in total. The total is 5 hours duration we will be spending on that. So today is the first session we are doing. By the end of these 5 hours, you all would have built this application with ease, you will understand how we have built it, how object-oriented programming concepts actually came together in this. So I don't know if I have, let me check if I have that, at least the end demo with me. Okay, here on this laptop, I do not have, but I'll show you what exactly we are talking about. There is an all-time video on that we posted on YouTube. I'll include that so that you understand what we are building. YouTube mini paint being 0. Let me search. Yeah, so this is the application that I'm talking about. And I'll just show you what is it that we are building. Yeah, so this is what that application will look like. I'm directly jumping to the action part. Yeah, so if you see, this is what requirements look like. User should be able to draw line, oval, rectangle. So I'm spelling out requirements here. So if you see, a user can draw these 3 shapes. From drop down, if he selects any shape, there is a filled button also. If you do not select filled and you drag and drop your mouse, you are able to draw an empty rectangle. It's not a filled rectangle. Then we choose oval. This is an empty oval. And line is already there. And we can choose the color also. Okay, this is one more line being drawn. Right. User should be able to choose the color for drawing and filling. So that is another requirement we are putting, that anything you draw, you should be able to change the color of that. Yeah, so if you see, we will be selecting some color. And now if we select oval, it will be, and filled, it is drawn red color, then rectangle. So this small case study is really interesting. Once you get that working on your laptop, once you build that yourself, you will realize you would have learned a lot. Like not only gained something building, but also like able to realize how object-oriented programming concepts are actually helpful in building real world software. Right? So there is undo redo feature also here, which we will not focus on right now. We will focus on building this paint application, and all that we will do through our object-oriented programming concepts. So I'll pause it here, and let me come back to our node. Now here onwards, whatever we will be learning, that will be to have enough knowledge that eventually we can build that small application. So this is the link I'm putting here. These notes will be shared with you. So this link is also available. So this is talking about mini paint requirements and case study that we will build. Right. So total session duration will be 5 hours, and we will do that gradually so that whatever concepts we are learning, we are able to digest that, we are able to grasp that totally. Okay. So here I was. So I was explaining this. Before building this application, let me talk about building a small application. What we actually want to do, we want to build a UI. I think somebody unmuted herself. Okay, thank you. So we want to do a small thing where you will build a UI. This UI will have an OK button. If you click OK button, it should display some message. It should give us some hint, hey, that you have pressed the OK button. Very small application, a single class application right now we are talking about, but we will do it from object oriented angle. So this will be like a first application that we will talk about, my first app. There will be a button here. We will click the button, and on click of button, it should show us a message. So first exercise 1 that we are going to do, build a UI app that has a UI form which has a button. When we click the button, it should display a message box to us. showing you pressed the button. That is what we want to achieve. Now, we will do this small thing also. This is a very small thing though, but we will do this also as object-oriented programming exercise. Now, you need to tell me what are the classes you can identify from this problem statement. So feel free to type in chat window. From this problem statement, what are the nouns you can focus on? Those will be the classes. Identify the classes. So, okay, I see people are saying button. So let me write that. Button is a class, okay? So Deepika is saying on click. Deepika, on click is actually the word itself is saying it is an action. So on click will not be a class. Is that making sense, Deepika? Yeah. So we will focus on nouns. That is what we talked about. So yeah, people are saying form. Yes, we need a form. We need a message box. Yes, that is another class we are identifying. Anything else? So keep yourself focused to this. Right now, we are not identifying classes for paint. We are not identifying for paint application. We are doing for this application, this small application, the first exercise that we are talking about. So Deepika says text box. Deepika, where will be the text box here? Look at the problem statement. Our classes identification should be related to what the requirement is talking about. In this requirement, where is the requirement of text box coming from? Just trying to understand. Deepika, when you said text box, what is the, how did you kind of arrive at the conclusion that we need a text box class? Okay. Fine. So there is no text box mentioned here. Oh, message box. Yeah, Deepika. Message box we have already captured, certainly. Right. So I also want to make sure that whatever you are learning is not, you are not learning anything wrong. So we are focusing on the problem statement. Okay. So Hari Prasanna says, sir, why is form a class? Good question. Earlier I said when we are identifying classes, we identify you by focusing on noun. Now, when you build a software application, there has to be a form that user sees in front of him on the screen, right? Ideally, if you see, I'm typing in Visual Studio Code, I'm typing in this box, but on top there is a form. I can press this close button, which will close the Visual Studio. So call it a form or call it a window. I get it. Like the name is what is confusing for you. Will it make sense if I call it window rather than form? Yeah. So ideally, since the problem statement said that has a form, or let me call it that has a window, now it will be more appropriate. Rather than calling it form, we call it window. So we are talking about using 3 classes for now. Perfect. So this makes sense. Okay. Now, any more classes that you are able to identify from this problem statement? No, right? These 3 are good enough for now. Perfect. So now we go one more step ahead. Let's take a look at those classes one by one and see what attributes or functions those classes will have. Let's focus on button class. We are talking about its class diagram now. Can you tell me what are the data members, properties of button? Yeah. State. What is meaning of state, Vaishnavi, here? Okay. It will have size. Size will be, what will be the data type of size? Yeah. Size data type. Will it be int? Think about it. When we say size for a button, button is a 2D object, 2-dimensional object. So size cannot be only int. Size has to be, it has to be tuple, it has to be a pair. It needs to be a mixture of 2 things, x, y. Yeah. So for in our terminology, we will call it, let's call it a point, not point will not make sense. Let's call it dimension. Reason I'm calling it dimension is Java has a built-in class for dimension. Or we can call pixel. Yeah, dimension reason I'm using is because Java has that class. So people said button will have a name rather than name, it will be more appropriate to call that button will have a title, right? Which will be a string. Whatever text you see on the button, that is a title. So button has a size, has a title. Let me see any other property. Okay, Nilima said button has a color. Yes, it can have a background color. Let me call it BG color. And let's use the class as color. So these are additional classes. You'd see we did not identify these classes from the problem statement, but when we are going into details of designing our classes, we are seeing that there is need of more classes that we have. So here we need a dimension class to represent size of anything. And that size can be size of button, that can be size of window, that can be size of message box. So these are the new classes we are bringing in. String is another class to represent title. Color is another class to represent color. So now if you see, the moment we dig deeper into any class, we are able to come up with more classes. Okay, so Nilima says, sir, does position come under attribute? Yes, Nilima, position can also come under attribute. That is true, because where you are placing button on the form, that will become a position attribute. So button will have a position attribute in context of the form, in context of the window, but only button will not have any position attribute, right? But position makes sense. In overall application, position will come into picture. Yeah, but position will come into picture when we are attaching a button to the window. So right now I'll stay till here. Now these are some of the properties we have identified for button. Can you tell me what are the functions in the button? What function we will need for this application's perspective? Yes, we need on click. That means whenever we click the button on click, what should this button do on click? Ideally, we will say when we click this button, it should call the function we write. So ideally, in on click, we should be able to pass our function. But in Java, you do not have function pointers. So what we will do, in on click, we will pass an object to our class, our handler. For now, let me call it our handler so that it conveys the meaning. So we will give object of a class whose function needs to be called here. And for now, I'll put void as the return type. So what is the purpose of this line? I'm saying whenever this button is clicked, this button should call a function, and that function should be our class. So our handler is a class we will write, which will have a function that we want to execute whenever somebody clicks the button. And then we will call message box from there. Is it making sense? Everyone got it? Like, what is the meaning of this line, what I just described? So onClick is a function in the button to which we are saying whenever somebody clicks you, you need to call my function, because action also we want to write as code. What action should be taken? Button would not know. It is us who have to provide that action. So this is what our button class looks like. Now let's focus on our window class. What do you think will be the attributes, properties of window class? Yes, size, certainly. Every UI element will certainly have size. What else? You see any window, if I open any window here, calculator, notepad, these all are windows. Notepad++. What is it that the window has? Every window has. Okay, perfect. So yeah. Sushita, Yamini, they have identified all windows seem to be having minimize, maximize, close buttons. All have title, all can have menus, right? So let's see. So window, I will say will have a title, string. Window will also have something called as, I will call it like the top right. There are 3 buttons which are standard. For now, let me call it as control buttons, and let me call it as list of buttons, right? Which is covering minimize, maximize, and minimize, maximize, and maximize, and close, right? So this is what we have described. Window will have. Now people are saying window can have menu, but yeah, menu will be a separate class altogether. and that menu class will be related to window, that will be connected to window. For now, let's stick to these three properties, and we stick to one more property. Can we also say window has some children? Because people were saying scroll bar. So scroll bar, ideally, if you see, window doesn't have scroll bar. It is the control in the windows that have scroll bar. For example, in this window, this area is a text area. This top bar is a toolbar. On top of that, there is a menu bar. Menu bar is a separate class. Toolbar is a separate class. This text area is a separate class. Each of these class have their own properties. I'm pressing enter. So this scroll bar is not in window. This scroll bar is in the text area. Right? So that's why I'm not putting that here. But window can have a lot of children. And all the children, I will give a category. I'll give a name. Let's say these are UI controls. Anything that we attach on window, they will be available as children of the window. So this way we are not leaving anything. On window, we can attach other controls which will be available as children. So we will say these are the properties of window so far that we could think of. Now tell me, what functions will window provide? I'll use singular. What functions will window have? Yeah, display. Nilima says display window. Whenever you say show me window, so let me call that function. Rather than display, let's call show. And we can have hide also. So what we can say is, let's use your idea. Display. It will take a Boolean field. Visible Boolean. If we pass true, it will display the window. If we pass false, it will hide the window. So typically when we are setting visibility, typically these functions we can call as setter functions. So we are saying set visible. We are setting visible true or false, right? Any other function? So display is covered. Display and hide both we have defined as one function only. Close, yeah, Vaishnavi said close. We can close the window. So close window is a function. From our application angle, think about it. What do we need? What is this line meaning? Highlighted portion, just pay attention to that. Window which has a button. Now, if you have object of button class, if you have object of window class, there are two separate objects. You want to link them together. How will you link them? What function you will use? Will button class have a function for that, or window class have a function for that? Yeah, window class should have a function for that. What will be appropriate name of that function that we can give? Our goal is we want to add a button to the window. We want to attach a button to the window. So what do you think would be appropriate name we can give to that function? Yeah, add button. Ideally, we can say add button, but also keep in mind on window, you can add a button, you can add radio button, you can add text box. Later on, think from broader perspective, window should have function to add any control. So what we did, rather than adding 10 different functions, add button, add text box, add checkbox, we will say, let's make this function add or add control. Yes, Nilima, that will be more appropriate. Add, and we call that we are giving it a UI control, and this function will go and add that to window. Now the question comes, where will it add? Which location we will add? With this, we can also give a position, right? This is where people were talking about we may need a class for position also. This will be position in window where you want to attach the button. So we have given two functions here. One function who will by default add at 0, 0 location. If you treat this as a window, we will say this is origin 0, 0. Here X increases, here Y increases. Right? So from 0, 0 here, if I come, I will say 100, 100. So if we are adding a button at 100, 100, this is how the button will look like. So ideally we got it that we needed one function. If we do not give any position, the button will be added here. If we give a position, button will be added at that position. So these two functions, separate functions we have given so that we have convenience. So if I summarize whatever we have discussed so far is we identify classes from problem statement. And this time we have gone ahead one step. In that classes, we have identified properties, or call them fields, and methods, right? So that is what we have done so far. Third thing that we typically do is identify relationships among classes. That is the third thing we do. If I ask you, is there any relationship between button and a window class? If yes, what is the relationship? Yes, what is the relationship between these two classes? Let me call. Formally, we have three kinds of relationships: has a, is a, and uses. Object-oriented world has these three relationships among classes. If I ask you, what is the relationship of button with window? So Deepika says has a, yes. So Shirisha, one to many is something that we talk about later. That is even more detail about the relationship. But right now we are saying what kind of relationship it is. It is has a. So can I say button has a window? Is that correct to describe the relationship? No. So what is the right way to define the relationship? Window has a button. Correct? Window has a button. So there is a has a relationship. When do we say two classes have is a relationship? Has a relationship is kind of containment. One class contains object of another class. So there will be a has a relationship. Is a relationship is represent inheritance. When one class inherits from another, then we say there is a relationship. So if I say person is a class, actor is a class, and student is also a class. If I go back, let me call as a person is a class, actor is a class. What is the relationship between person class and actor class? Or to be more precise, film actor. What is the relationship between person class and film actor class, or human being class and film actor class? The film actor is a person. Can we say that? Every film actor is a person. Yes. If I ask you what is the relationship of student class with person class, then also it is a relationship. Right? So we have talked about is a relationship, which is representing inheritance. Now, what is uses relationship? Uses is, I'll go into details of that later. It is like, for now, I'll skip that because this will be more evident when we see an example. When we are going to code, no, it is not polymorphism. I'll describe that when we write our first UI that we talk about. Right. So let's go back here. Problem statement. We have done a lot of theoretical discussion. Let's do it with one practical now. So we are saying we need to have a window class which has button. When we click the button, it should display the message box. So in Java, when we start writing code in Java, we know every Java program needs to start with a class. So it will be public class being 0 exercise 1. So I'm going to call it exercise 1 for object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming exercise 1. Then we will write public static void. I'll keep making some mistakes. You need to correct me wherever I'm going wrong. Yeah, can you tell me any mistake I have made in this? Yeah, static keyword S should not be capital. So it should be small. S should be small, absolutely. So we should not play around with that. So args. Somebody is saying this, they should be args. Now let me tell you, this is most of the students will have wrong notion. This variable name can be anything. Data type has to be string array. In place of args, you can write A, B, C, anything. This is one thing you can play around with. This is another thing you can play around with. Rest all have to be followed strictly. Let me save it. So Java program, it should be saved with the same file name because I am giving class name as public class. So this is public class. So I'll save it in a file being 0 OOP EX1. Now, in this picture that you are seeing right now, there are two classes involved. Can you tell me what are the two classes that we are using or we are seeing in this highlighted picture? Main class is not a class. This main is a function. You're interpreting things wrong. Main is a function. Yeah. So there are two classes, being 0 OOP exercise 1 and string is another class. Right? So two classes involved are this and this. If you see, if I ask you now, what is the relationship of string class with being 0 OOP class? If I ask you, do we have is a relationship between them? Is there is a relationship? Can you tell me if this relationship is a? Answer is no. Do we have has a relationship? Now we are going into details of that. It is not has a. Why? Because has a means one class contains object of another class as its field. Do we have, if I say, if in being 0 OOP, if I say exercise name, now I can say being 0 OOP EX1 has a string data member. This is has a relationship, line number 4. But if line number 4 is not there, will you say string will have has a relationship with this? Answer to that is no. So there is a uses relationship here. So this clarifies the third point. Uses relationship comes when we use object of another class. If we are using object of another class as function parameters or return type, they are not data members, or local variables inside functions. These three things will help us know there is a uses relationship. So ideally we can say being 0 OOP class is using string class, but string class is not a data member. Now if I do string B, what is relationship of this B with OOP EX1? What is the relationship between this class and this class now if I focus only on these two parts? Right now, can you tell me? Go back. See, read it again. What is has a relationship? One class contains object of another class as its field, as its data member. Is it a data member of the class? Is B attribute of this class? Is B property or field of this class? Answer to that is no. And okay, so this is a concept that I think most people are confused with right now. Let me clarify. If you have a class A, if you have a class B, class diagram wise, if I draw it, then I'll say this is a class A, this is class B. Now, this section we know has fields, this has methods. If fields has an area where we say B is a field whose data type or is this class, this is has a relationship. Now we can say A has a data member whose data type is B. Do we have has a relationship? Let me remove this. If this line is not there, look at this string class, this string class. Do we have has a relationship? Now we have iterated the definition once again of has a. This is not has a relationship. So this should be clear to you, right? Now to avoid confusion, let me remove this. Now I type string X here. Now tell me, do we have has a relationship between string and this class? This is also not has a relationship because this class does not have a data member with this name. This function is using it. Function is using string data type. That is why it is a uses relationship. So hope now things are much clearer, much better. Now you can pay attention to this documentation that what is uses relationship. It is object of another class is being used either as a function parameter, that is what we saw here. Input parameter of function is using that class, or as a return type. Any function returns string, that will also be uses, or local variables inside the function. That is what I showed you as third example. So this was the relationship which was uses relationship, not has a relationship, right? So, okay, this is what we have written so far. Now we say we want to write the program. Coming back, we want to write a program which does this. Build a UI app that has window which has a button. So first of all, this code that we are writing in main function, this code is called the client code. We will be using our classes that we will build in our software. So first class that we need is the window class. Let me write this class as window. I want to define a window class window. For now, I'm putting everything in the single file. Ideally, if it is a real project, we would create a separate file for window class. We'll call it window.java. Now, window is a class where it will have some functions for us, where we can create objects of that class. Now, right now, I'm not putting any field, any function here. Now, tell me, how do I create object of window class? Window w is equal to, how do I create object of window class? Can anybody help me with the syntax in Java? Window w is equal to new window. Right? We have created object of our window class. And window class is what we are writing. Our goal is to show the window. Now, once window is written, we set a function set visible. So I should be able to call the function set visible v capital true. So this should display me the window, right? So, but this window class does not have any function set visible. Now I'm going to do some cheating, and that cheating is I will say extends. I know in Java there is a built-in class called JFrame, which actually represents window. Import javax.swing.jframe. What is the confusion? Window does not declare any static field. Okay, I'll ignore that warning for now. So what we did a cheating. We inherited from a JFrame class, and that way we are bringing one more class into picture, and we are saying, hey, we have a built-in class JFrame. That is what we can directly use. And JFrame class already has set visible function built into it. So the beauty of inheritance is we do not have to write all that code. We can just inherit from JFrame and we are done. This will display the window to us right now. Let's see that. Does it actually display the window? Java C being 0. Oops. So we compile the code and we see it got compiled without errors. That means the class that we have used, the syntax we have used, the function we have called, that they are valid functions. Now, how do we run this code? In Java, how do I run? This got compiled. How do I run this file? What is the command we use to run a Java program? Java and class name. So class name is this. Hit enter. And when I hit enter, if you have noticed on the corner, there is a small window that has appeared. And this is actually the window from our program. I'll show you what that is. It is, if I increase the size of this, so this is our window. Without writing much code, we have just created a window, right? Now, since we are using a built-in window class, let me close this. Let me stop the program. So we have reached one step closer to what we were building. We said, build a UI app that has a window, which has a button. We have not reached to the button perspective, but at least we have reached till window. We are able to create a window, but this window does not have any size right now. You all said like window can have a size. So we should have, if size is a property in window, we should have a set size function also, which will allow us to set size. We will see, is that a function really, which should have either dimension or something, and it will be void. So let's see. Now, since we got to know that there is a built-in JFrame class, the easy way to search for Java documentation is you say JFrame, any Java class. If you want to see the documentation, JFrame Java doc. Java doc is Java documentation. It will directly take you to the documentation of that. Now we have come here. This is class JFrame. Let's see. This is telling field summary, what are the properties, and bottom it will say constructors. Here it will say methods. All the functions are described here. So we are trying to see, is there any function to set the size? Set size, I see this is a function, it inherits from window. Let me open this function and see what this function takes from us. So set size is a function which takes width and height, and set size is a function which takes dimension also. There are two varieties of this function. I can call this function directly with width and height, or I can call this function with an object, dimension object, which is another class which has width and height. So I'll use this for now. Void function set size. Let me go back to our example and say, before making it visible, I'll say set size. So let's give 300 as width and 400 as height and put a semicolon. This time the window we see, it should be big enough that we don't have to see in the corner. So with this change, let me go back and compile the code again. Java C and Java being 0 to exercise 1. And we see this time window is big enough. Right, so we got a window, and you know which OOPS concept we have applied in this? Can somebody tell me which object-oriented programming concept helped us write this window class without typing any code? We are doing code reusability. Yes, this is inheritance. And we are seeing inheritance into action. Now, if you go back to the definition of inheritance, what does inheritance say as a definition? It says object-oriented programming makes it easy for us to reuse the code, avoid code duplication. We can inherit from existing classes. So code duplication is avoided. If you see, we did not have to write all that code which JFrame already has. So inheritance is in action right now. Public keyword, what is it related to? Which OOP concept it is related to? 4 OOPS concepts are there: inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. We said extends is related to inheritance. What is public keyword related to? Okay, good. I know this confusion a lot of people will have. Public is not related to abstraction. Yeah, access modifiers, typically we say they come under encapsulation. We will talk about that more when we summarize all the OOPS concepts. Yeah. So for now, inheritance is in action. We have seen encapsulation. Encapsulation is actually 2 parts. Encapsulation is binding functions and data members together, plus controlling the access to it. So access modifiers plus class and functions concept comes under encapsulation. Inheritance we have already seen. Now you also saw that set size function has another variant which we could have called set size, where I could have said new dimension. Dimension is a class, and we could have given a width and a height. Let's say 400, 600. This line of code will also work. Only thing is I just need to import dimension. So import java.awt. For now, I'll just import everything in AWT. Dimension is a class in that package. If I go and compile the code again, you see it got compiled and we are able to run. This time it is 400 by 600 window. Right, so this function also works, this function also works. There are 2 varieties of a function. What is this concept? What is this OOPS concept? A function exists, same function name exists with different set of input parameters. Yes, this is overloading, certainly. This is overloading. And the OOPS concept for overloading is polymorphism. Polymorphism will have 2 concepts, overloading and overriding. For now, we have seen only overloading. We will talk about overriding also separately. So you see 3 OOPS concepts in a small program we have just now seen. Okay, so now we have got this example where we have got a window. Now the next step that we wanted to do was, in window, what should we do? According to our problem statement, what should window have? It should have a button. So, and we identified there is a hazard relationship. So let's go to this window and put a JButton. JButton is also a built-in class. btn click me. Now, what is the relationship between JButton and window class? Can you describe the relationship now? What is the relationship? This has a relationship, absolutely. So we have JButton in window. Now what we will do, we will define a constructor which will actually initialize this JButton, and it will add the button to the window, because the moment client code says create a window, it should create a window with button on it. We should not worry about anything else after that. So we should say btn click me is equal to new JButton, and we will call it with the text. Here we are giving the title, click me. And if you see, the constructor also is having overloads in the sense there are many constructors. Let me again, JButton. Yeah, JButton can take action, can take icon, can take text. I'm calling this text version. So click me. So we have just created the button, but button has to be added also on window. So how do we add a button to the window? Again, we will look at the JFrame documentation. Do we have any add function here? I am just searching on the documentation. Add function. So okay, let me go back to JFrame documentation. This was JFrame add. Okay, JFrame has a function add where we can add any child, and that also we discussed in our discussion that window will have some sort of function add to which we can add any UI control. And I will use the first overload here. I will say, let's go ahead and say add, and here we will give the object that we want to add. So btn click me is what we are adding. So this is the function we are calling. But we should also check the documentation. Does it take only one parameter? Here it is saying one. Let me look at the function. Add component, I guess yes. So we have added the button. Let's compile the code. Somebody has unmuted. Can you mute yourself? You're causing disturbance for others. Thank you. So let's compile the code. Java C, code got compiled. Let's run this code now and see, do we get a button on the window? Do you see a button on the window? Yes. So this button has filled the entire window. So it is like it saw an empty plot. It said, okay, this all belongs to me. It has fixed here because we did not use any position where we want to attach, and we did not set any size of the button. We directly created a default button. The moment you add a default button to default window, it takes entire space. So right now we are able to click the button. Only thing left is on click of the button, we want to show a message box. Let me close this once again. Let's complete this last step. Now this button that we created, this button has btn click me has add action listener. There is a function add action listener which takes object of a class. We will give it a handler object. This is object that we will create. So I will create a separate class now, and I will say class our handler. This class will adhere to some constraints because there is something we will talk about event handling also. So this will implement an interface, implements action listener interface. So action listener is a built-in interface in Java. Java.awt.events.star. Yeah. So we are getting into event handling. If you don't get it right now, don't worry about it. I'll discuss that concept also in detail. So we are implementing action listener, and this handler's object is needed to be given to button. Handler is equal to new our handler. Yeah. So that means whenever somebody clicks the button, it will call a function of this class, and that function comes from this interface. The function name is public void action performed, and it will be action event AE. So that is little heavy concept, but we will cover that also. But for now, keep in mind, whenever somebody clicks the button, this function will be called. It is guaranteed. And here we can write our code. We can write whatever we want to do on click of button. For now, I will print a simple string message, system.out.println. For now, I'll say button clicked. Right? So that we see if we click the button, do we actually see the message on console? And we are done with at least 90% of this problem statement we are done with. And you see all OOPS concepts came into picture. Let's go back, say Java C, 0 Java. Okay, our handler is not abstract. Wait, I made some mistake. Public void action performed. Let me check what is the method, because this method name should exactly match the method of that interface. I'll check Java doc for this. Action listener. Which function this provides? It is action performed, action event. Let me go back, put that in case I have made any mistake. Okay, I think this was correct. Let me go back and see what does it say. Our handler is not abstract, does not override abstract method, action performed. Now we have done that. Let's see. Semicolon expected, line number 10. Okay, I missed that curly bracket. Let's compile once again now. Java C. Okay, there is something that I'm missing out here. Class our handler implements action listener. Ideally, this should be correct. And the interface name is appropriate. Action listener only. Our handler, we are implementing, we are writing a function. This should be public. That also we already had. Let me try once more. Okay. Our handler is not abstract and does not override the method action performed in action listener. Okay, guys, I'm missing something. Our handler, we are adding an add action listener. And this is object of action listener. Okay, let me try that here for the time being. No, let me search some example. Action listener example Java. We'll figure it out what the issue is. How to write action listener. There is a tutorial for that. I'll just follow from there. So class extends action listener, implements action listener, and here we have action performed. Okay, for now I'll try one more thing. This window that we are using, let me implement action listener here. I can have any class which implements this, and I'm adding this function back here. Let's see. And for now, get rid of our handler. I will create object of window class, and I will pass this as a handler. So this I'm removing just to work around this problem. We'll debug it later. So let me try now. Okay, window is not abstract. That's not. Okay, this I'm stuck with. I don't know. Okay, this I'll get back to you with the solution. I'm not able to make out right now what I'm missing over here. But the event, the connection of events is this. Oh, now I got it. See, I imported the wrong action event. So this action event that is imported is from JavaFX. Code syntax was right. I think import statement is what made the problem for us. Let me go back to our code and let me remove this. This action event is a separate interface in JavaFX. Accidentally, that got imported. So what action listener we want? We want an action listener which is from java.awt.event. So we were importing a different one. So now if I compile, it should be okay. Yep. Java being 0 OOP, example 1, run it. So now you have a window with a button. Let's click the button, we see the message. Click the button, we see the message. So every time you click the button, that action will be taken, right? Yep. So this was the event handling concept, which we will kind of cover again in detail. What is event handling? But this small application should help you realize that We have used inheritance to use JFrame class. We have used classes. We have used polymorphism when we are calling the functions, right? So for today, this is where we wanted to reach. I have a small exercise for you that you need to do. I'll share this code also with you. So exercise or assignment, call it, for you is you need to figure out what do you change in this function so that you see the message box. So this line needs to be replaced with a line in Java that should display a message box that shows the desired output as per our problem statement. Everyone clear about the exercise and assignment? Feel free to search online for documentation. If you are not comfortable with Swing, feel free to search online. You see, even now I did the same thing. When I got stuck with that error, I just went search online. So feel free to do that. But you should make this statement a reality, and I bet you will learn a lot. And in fact, rather than sharing you this code also, I will in fact let you write this code. But what help I can provide is I will upload the video of this class. This class is getting recorded. So whatever we have discussed so far, that recording will be available to you. Feel free to go over the recording. It will help you revise the concepts. And you need to complete this exercise. So next time when we meet, next time when we plan a session, I will ask you like, have you completed this assignment, this exercise or not, right? So this is where we will end today. If you have any questions, I'm available for next 10 minutes. Let me know if you have any question, any doubt related to whatever we have discussed or in general related to OOPS concepts. Feel free to utilize this time for that. Any questions from anyone? Okay. So overall, did you feel comfortable in attending this session online? Do you think, yeah, this mod will work out? So, okay. Okay, somebody said no also. What is the difference between one to many, many to one? How can we access the video? I'll post that in the group, Lakshmi. It will reach out to you through your college administration. I'll share it with them. So the way you were shared the link to this classes, same way things will reach out to you. So we are in touch with your management, and in fact, thanks to them, they only reached out. Jagapati sir reached out and said like, we need to utilize this time so that students are not missing out on these concepts. Since we are not able to do classes because of coronavirus, yeah. So we are in it. We are planning things well for you so that you don't lose out this time, right? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. In another hour or two, you will have access to the recording as well as notes. So that is what will come to you. So about next class, I think you will get to hear from Jagpati sir only that when are we meeting next, and we will take this OOPS concept journey forward. Thank you so much.